Now, the Our Story series, which is published by Heritage Publishers that we brought to the studio in recent months, has published a further 7 titles, adding to the 14 titles published in 2015. Now, approved by the Department of Education for grades 4 to grades 9, this is a versatile and exciting series that tells the stories that were and still are not only told or taught in our schools. Now, the collection is a rich legacy that is in danger of being forgotten by our children, the descendants of those whose stories are being told. And for the first time, a series collects and retells with equal importance and emphasis the story of the ancestors of all South Africans. But here to tell us about, of course, the latest releases in the series is Terrence Ball, who's the man behind the whole series. Terrence, welcome. Thank you for your time.
Good morning. Thank you very much indeed.
Exciting indeed. I see that you have books already lined up. I'm so excited. I'm hoping that I'll get a copy actually after this conversation because I'm such a book fanatic. But let's talk about, the benefit, of these series and as well as the new titles. Take me through the different titles, please.
Certainly I can. Well, we are finishing the story of a well-known family with Muzila the survivor. In the first 14, I published a story about his father, Shoshangan, the founder of the Amashangan nation, and one of the leading generals in the Battle of Umhlatuzi River. We did Muzila's son along with Shoshangan simply because Ngugunyane, the son of Muzila, was one of the first South African chiefs, or Hosi, who was exiled to the West Indies and died in exile. So then we've got 3 book 3s, which in the case of Makoma and in the case of Moshweshwe finish the lives of those 2 great chiefs. And then Mzlikazi Kamashobane. This is the 3rd of 4 books, and it starts with him building his great kraal in Mhlahlandlela in Pretoria North. Most people don't know that he ruled what we used to know as the Transvaal with a fist of iron before he was displaced by advancing Boers and had to flee to Zimbabwe.
Right.
The siege of Mafeking I'm particularly proud of and pleased about because for the first time what has traditionally been seen as a settler or a white history is being told by a Baralong grandmother to her grandchildren. And it looks at the difficulties that were faced by the Baralong during that siege. We have this view that the South African War was a conflict between Boers and Britain.
Right.
In fact, it involved all of us. And what I'm trying to do with the series is to make sure that we all appreciate the history, our own history, and the history of other South Africans. And regardless of who the history is about, that we treat them as our history, a South African history.
Now, I understand that you are published by Heritage Publishers. When I think of the word heritage and, use words such as ancestry and descendants, I think of the rich traditions that we have, as you're explaining in the history, found in these books. But why are the books only published in English, especially in a time where, indigenous languages are also encouraged in the country?
Well, obviously I've done books of across all of the South African languages. If I produce a book on Dibanika, Mokado and Chivenda, then only Azwi will be able to read that.
Right.
But if I do it in English, it makes it more accessible to all South Africans. And that is the idea of this, is to embrace Venda history, Zata, Makado, Pepu the First as our own history, the history of our people. And we are coming up to the 200th anniversary of a number of key events. Umhlatuzi River, where the Ndwandwe had to flee, the founding of the Shangaan nation, the movement of the Amandwandwe to northern Swaziland, and so on. Mzlikazi leaving KwaZulu-Natal. And I hope to create an awareness of these events so that we can celebrate and remember those great events in our distant past.
Well, interestingly and significantly, these series were approved by the Department of, Education for learners in grade 4 and 9. Are these books targeted at only that specific age group, or is it for any, age group or person to indulge in?
It is for anyone. I'm getting a lot of interest from adults because this kind of material has never been available before. If I charge you with the responsibility of going out to find a book on a long-deceased chief, you will battle to find that sort of information. So we are trying to collect all of these stories together to ensure that there is a repository, not only for this generation, but for future generations.
Now let's go back to the series again, Terrence. I mean, you mentioned the Siege of Mahikeng, how proud you are of that particular series. What was significant about that book, and what are some of the themes that come out of the Siege of Mahikeng?
Well, Mahikeng was besieged for a considerable period during the Boer War, and great suffering was caused to the people in the town itself. And what is intriguing is the story is told about a Barolong man whose job it was to go out at night and to steal cattle from the Boers who had besieged Mahikeng to bring them back in to stop the people from starving. And it's really is a story for the first time of the experiences of the Barolong during that siege, because the focus has principally been around Baden-Powell, the foundation of the Boy Scout movement, etc. But there were other people involved in this that haven't been the focus of these stories in the past.
Right.
So it is a story of the Barolong people rather than a specific person.
And also we have another series where you publish the Muzila the Survivor, of course, after the book Ngugunyani, Exiled King and Freedom Fighter. That's another powerful title there. That's
correct. I mean, as I was saying earlier, Ngugunyani is the son of Muzila, and I'm now looking at a story possibly about Ngugunyani's son, Buisonto, who was exiled with his father as a baby, made his way back as a young man from the West Indies to Namibia, Walvis Bay, I believe, and then walked across the subcontinent to join his people in what we today know as Bushbuck Ridge.
Sure.
In that area.
Such a rich history there.
Tulamahash.
Right.
Yeah,
now, before I let you go there, Terrence, what is the future of the series, and where can we find these books?
Well, I'm talking to booksellers at the moment. I think we're all aware that there are various challenges in business, and I know that booksellers are trying not to hold a great amount of stock. But I would urge anyone who's interested in obtaining a copy of these books to insist that their bookseller order these books.
All right. Thank you so much. Terrence Ball, thank you so much for coming to Morning Live.
Thank you very much indeed.